Welcome back to Next Life Garage. We're working on the Nissan today, trying to further figure out our problem why she wasn't running real well on the 14-pound tune attempt. When I got into checking on the spark plugs to see if they were fouled or not, I found quite the problem down in the spark plug well for cylinder number 1. A little bit of oil down in there. When I say a little bit, I mean a little bit. There's a little ring seal that goes underneath the valve cover right here, and that seals off these spark plug wells that run down the center of the valve cover to keep oil from getting down in those spark plug wells. And apparently when I installed the last one, when I had it off doing the timing tensioners, I didn't get it lined back up right when I put it back together. So we got some oil in there, probably causing us not to spark or fire in that cylinder once engine vibrations pick up, which is why, it was only doing it under certain RPM loads. We did have a problem though with the barometric pressure switch over there, as you saw in the other episode. So we're just trying to clean everything up so that we can go back out and tune it on this thing again. So I'll bring y'all along while I get the valve cover off. I am going to go ahead and take the upper timing cover off, and we're going to set our cams back to stock. As I told you in one of the other videos, we advanced the cams as if they were aftermarket cams, and they're just stock cams. And I think we're losing quite a bit of RPM band and power band by advancing those things. We're making a lot more torque in the bottom, you can feel, but I don't want to sacrifice my higher RPMs just for that little bit of torque on the bottom. So we'll be going through that today as well. I'm going to get at it. Y'all stick around and hang out and watch what I do. Alright, I've got most of my tools laid out to get started on this project. At least until I get into the cam gears messing with that. I'm going to start off disconnecting this breather. Getting it out of the way. And we'll disconnect the wiring harness, get it out of the way. Just make things a little easier. Just kick that down there for now. Unplug all these sensors. And for those of you that hadn't done any of this out there, these little plugs and clips, at least on these more modern cars, they only go back one way. All these clips are unique for the sensors that they go to. At least on the Japanese and Swedish models, being the Volvo that we have. So it's kind of hard to put it back together wrong. Routing might be a little bit different, but your wire harness will only stretch so far as well. So don't be afraid of that sort of stuff. Not that big a deal. You should probably disconnect the battery before you do this too, but I never have. They always recommend it though, at least in the service manual. Haynes manual, Chilton manual. Factory service and Chilton is what I prefer to use if I can find them. Those tend to be the more accurate ones. The Haynes is just enough to get you in trouble in my opinion. Again, pardon the music. I work better with a little tunage. Might be some vulgarities coming out of there, so if the kids are around watching with you, I apologize. That ground wasn't tight at all. That might have been a little bit of a problem. I doubt it. I'm going to have to take that bung out of the valve cover. Just disconnecting 2 more grounds over here on this side of the block. I like to put my bolts back where they come out of, where you don't lose them when it's time to put things back together. Tips and tricks. More tips and tricks. Punching over a lowered car like this isn't easy on the back. Crack these loose in order according to the factory service manual. Pocket computer again. They'll get a call back. Little spark plug wire holder there. That should do it. Oh yeah. See how that little ring's not seated on that valve right there? See some metal there? That should be sitting on there nice and clean. That's how we were getting our oil down in that spark plug well. We're going to correct that while we're in here. Glad to see it was a simple problem. I'm going to work on getting this valve cover gasket out of here. Probably turn y'all off in the process. That thing's got to be RTV down in these little wells. Keep it sealed up in there. It's kind of tricky to get out. Probably going to have to replace it anyway. I do have a new one. But I'm going to see if I can't save this guy without tearing it up too bad. I'll bring you back in once I get her out. I managed to get the valve cover gasket out of those little wells for the camshaft without tearing it up, so we might get to reuse that part of the valve cover gasket. In order to get the upper timing cover off there right here, I'm going to have to take the distributor out. In order to get the distributor out, I got to take the hot pipe, the bypass valve, and the recirculation hose off of the intake pipe. So I'm going to get started on that, and then we'll get to that upper timing cover to get it off. And if you're going to turbo a car, I highly recommend T-bolt clamps instead of those little worm gear things. T-bolts can be torqued where the worm gears can't, and you can reuse T-bolt clamps time and time again, as long as you don't over torque them. And when you're torquing these things, you're talking inch pounds. Ones I have here from HPS only require about 65 inch pounds. So it doesn't take a whole lot of pressure to hold these things on, especially when you've got rib charge pipes. Helps hold them on, saves you from blowing them off. Tips and tricks again. Don't buy the cheap T-bolts either. They got square ends on them, and those square ends get hung up on your wrenches when you're trying to tighten them down. I'll show you once I get one of these off what I'm talking about. I guess I threw the crappy ones out that I replaced. There's still some on here that need replacing. But you see how the shoulder on this T-bolt's round behind the nut? The cheapos are square behind the nut. And as you're trying to tighten them down, sometimes your wrench will work down onto that square and it won't turn. So buy quality when you're doing this stuff. HPS, I'm not sponsored by them, don't get paid by them. I just know quality counts, and that's a quality product. T-bolt clamp. I'm going to go ahead and wrench this over to top dead center before I pull the distributor out, just to reference where the rotor's pointing. Not like I haven't done this 100 times before, but I'll get y'all out of the sky once I get it referenced, show you what I'm doing to reference it, just so y'all will know if any of y'all messing with these KA24s. And they come in all kinds of Nissans, Altimas, pickup trucks, the 240s, some of the Sentras had it in it. So it's just a diverse engine used all across the band of Nissan. So I'll show you what I'm doing once I get in there. We're set at top dead center now, so I'll get y'all out of the sky, show you the pointer and the damper, how everything's set up down there, show you the distributor and how it's lined up with the cap, and how I'm determining that as well. You can see the little pointer right there and the little red dot on the damper. That's top dead center on the damper. And I'll show you how I'm judging it on the distributor here as well. Locating pin on it right here for the distributor cap goes into this hole right here. And when things are lined up in there and the cap is on, the rotor over here on the side where it makes contact with the distributor is lined up with the number 1 spark plug right here. That's how you know you're at top dead center on your firing stroke. When you've got the valve cover off, you can also tell by the lobes on your cam. Both lobes, intake side and exhaust side, will be pointing to the outside of the engine, meaning that valves are closed on the number 1 cylinder there. I can't show you the oil down in there, it's a little too dark, but the spark plug in the number 1 well is completely buried in oil, and the spark plug in the number 2 well has probably the depth of the flange on the nut on the spark plug deep. Well, I'll set y'all back up in the sky now that y'all see how the distributor and the damper down there line up. I do have some timing marks here on the chain. You can see that little yellow mark there. I've got to get those lined up on the cam gears properly. Just me personally, I like to set them up like that so I know I'm getting things back together. You could probably mark the chain for your marks on your wheels here, on your gears, and do it that way. But I just prefer to have everything up. It'll probably take 20 or 30 turns of the engine to get everything lined back up properly, as everything is not symmetric. The distances between those marker chains are not symmetric. Black marks are the marks for the gears on the cams. The yellow mark was the mark for the idler pulley that's behind here. We'll see that in a minute when I get this upper timing cover off. But we're set back, top dead center. We got our timing mark correct on this gear, timing mark correct on that gear. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the distributor out, take this upper cover off. We'll take some tension off the chain and get those bolts broken loose holding the cam sprockets on. We'll adjust those back to factory, and I'll show you what I'm doing there once we get this stuff off. One distributor removed. I'm going to go grab the dead blow persuader, see if we can get this upper timing cover off now. Got the dead blow. Just going to give her a few gentle taps. This thing's just held on with RTV. It does have locating pins in it though. Put that down, we don't need it anymore. Don't want to go too crazy with it. Again, we're working with aluminum here. Aluminum will break if you go beating on it too much. Let me grab my tensioner pin so I can take the tension off that thing. I like to hang on to these little things when I get them. You never know when you're going to need them again. But basically you just push the tensioner in, and there's a little pinhole that this goes in to keep tension off the chain while you're working on it. I'll show you, get you out of the sky, show you when I get it installed. Well, at this point, with tension off the chain, and again I'll get you out of the sky, show you that tensioner, how it's pinned off once I get these bolts out so I can show you how I'm adjusting these cam sprockets. But it's time to bust those things loose. I'm going to get an appropriate socket to fit those nuts, get an appropriate wrench or maybe a Mississippi socket set to put on the cam to hold it while I break them loose. These things are on pretty tight, about 105 foot-pounds, so y'all get to see a wiry, long arm, shorty long struggle with it. Leverage is a little guy's best friend. Again, leverage. May have to get out the bolt breaker. We'll see how it goes with this thing. Made that look easy, didn't I? Alright, what I'm going to be doing here is our locating pin is on slot number 3 right here for the cam, and our alignment mark on the chain is on number 3 for the sprocket here. Basically, we've advanced this cam 5 degrees from dead center. This is the dead center slot right here on the intake. So what I'm going to do is pull the gear off, turn it so that this slot, number 1 slot, is lined up with the locating pin right here. And then we'll make sure that this timing mark right here lines back up with number 1 on the cam sprocket. And that'll be set back to factory 0 degrees advance or retarded. Sorry for using that word, that's just what it is. Over here on the exhaust side, same deal. Our locating pin for the sprocket is right here on number 3 hole, and our number 1 slot is right here. So for each hole is 2.5 degrees of timing, so we're 5 degrees advanced on this one as well. And our time chain mark here is on number 3. Our little yellow mark down here is on our mark for our idler sprocket. You see the tensioner pin right there? You pull that pin, that tensioner pops out to put tension on the chain. I'm going to get on that, and then we'll put this thing back together, and hopefully she'll be sealed up and ready to go do some more tuning. Get y'all in here as close as I can to watch while I fumble around with this thing. But I'm going to attempt to pull the exhaust gear off first and get the sprocket turned where it needs to be and get the chain lined back up without losing things. And then I'll move over to the intake side. But here goes nothing. Might need to tap on that a little bit with a dead blow. 100 foot-pounds kind of locks that thing in there good. There we go. Keep our timing mark. I'll knock the intake off and swap it around as well. We got a little off top dead center, but as long as our marks are still lined up, we should be good. Now we'll take this intake off. I have to knock it a little bit with the dead blow persuader. There we go. Pull the gear out of the chain. Let's just get the gear back on. And we'll worry about that lower sprocket. Number 1 pin there. One and one on the exhaust now. Had to turn that exhaust cam just a hair to get it to line up pin with the hole on the sprocket. Not a big deal though. As long as she gets lined up, as long as that yellow mark stays mated up on the idler there. Snug that bolt down on the exhaust cam. That was close. I about dropped that cam bolt down in the oil pan. That would have been bad. Looks like I need to back that intake cam up just a little bit to get it to line up just right. Grab my Mississippi socket set. There we go. Have to rock the intake cam a little bit. Get it lined back up properly too. Stick this bolt back in. Verify that we still got the yellow still lined up right on the idler, and the little black marks are still lined up good on the cam, and the cam locating pins are both in the right direction, and they're both in the #1 slot for it. So we're 1 and 1 on exhaust, 1 and 1 on the intake. I'm about to go have some fun tuning on this thing after I get it back together, of course. I'm going to clean up this mating surface a little bit, try to keep all our gunk out of the oil pan down there, and get everything put back together. And this little job should be wrapped up. Make sure I get those gaskets in properly this time on the valve cover. I'm going to get out the big boy torque wrench, set it to 105, and torque those cam bolts back down. Get that all cleaned up, bring you back in when I start putting her all back together. I've got the timing cover kind of fish back in there. I'm going to give her a little tap to make sure she's snug. We'll put the bolts in and let them, just snug them down for now. We don't want them too tight. We'll give that liquid gasket probably 45 minutes to an hour to set up. And once I get the bolts snugged down, while we're waiting on the liquid gasket to set up, we'll get the oil out of those spark plug wells. Sorry. I'm one of those people, I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. I gotta focus on what I'm doing when I'm doing it. Any of y'all know how that is? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. That's how I operate though. We're going to let that set up a little while. I'm going to suck the oil out of that spark plug well, #1 anyway. I don't think I can get to the oil in #2, but I'll show you all what I'm going to do to get that stuff out of there. Got the Mighty Vac with my catch can for the oil out of that spark plug well. I'm going to stick the hose down in there, see if we can't suck that stuff out. Like I said, I'm not going to be able to get it all with the spark plug still down in there, but I'd like to get most of it before I use the other method I'm going to use to try and get this stuff out. That's all I was able to get out with the Mighty Vac. So we're going to have to use our other method to get the rest of it out. Show you what I'm talking about. grab the flashlight and see how we're doing in there. Where's my flashlight? Y'all see where I put that thing? These little projects would go a lot faster if I keep that stuff organized. Tips and tricks for y'all that I don't abide by. Oh man. We're gonna have to fish a little rubber stopper for the plug wire out of there. Little spark plug boot stuck in there, preventing me from getting the oil out. I don't want to pull the plugs and drop all that oil down in the cylinder. Probably will end up dropping some of it in there, but it'll burn it out. We'll just have a Spy Hunter smoke screen when we first start it up, probably. Those of y'all that know what Spy Hunter is. The language in some of this music. Got a little somewhere that time. Got quite a bit out on that one. Spin her around, use the other end. Or just tear this off. Go at it again. Quite a bit more out that time. Gotta get a clean towel and keep going until we get most of it out. We're getting down to it. Run it down in that cylinder one more time. And then we'll move on to number 2. Said number 2 didn't have a whole lot in it. I'm gonna say we got 99% out of number 1. Tear off the dirty spot and move on to number 2. I'm going to take another dip down in there to get all of it out of number 2 probably. One more dip in number 2 ought to take care of number 2. Alright. That's got most of it out of number 2. I'm going to say 99% of it anyway. We got 99% out of number 1. So I'm just going to clean up the inside of those spark plug wells, the sides of them, as best I can. That looks good. I don't think enough time has passed just yet to clamp down on the timing cover. I'll give that a little more time. Clean up the spark plug boot a little bit. I think it might be time for neurons on one of these. I've got some wire, but I don't have the ends. But you can't find MSD wires for this thing pre-made, being a jack box. Got the boot all cleaned up. Stick that back on the #1 plug. We've had enough time go by now to torque down this timing cover. Like I said, 12 millimeter bolts, 156 inch-pounds. You could go 165 if you wanted to. I like to split the difference of what the manual calls for. I'm just going to go around and kind of snug them all a little bit before I get them torqued down. This one's going to take a little bit, just holding my coolant lines for the turbo. We'll revamp and reset, get our bolt in for this other piece that holds our cooling lines for the turbo. And these little guys go to 66 inch-pounds. We got this one here. That one there is under cover. We just have to guess on that one. Add our torque. But, yeah, it doesn't need to be tight. Got belt clearance. Clearance on the bolts. There's one more back here in the back. It's hard to get to. I'm about ready to stick the valve cover back on and hope we get it back on right this time. Fill up these little wells with it. Don't need a whole lot. That ought to do it. Gasket. Pull it back down. Snap those in place. Now comes the fun part. Trying to keep that gasket in place while you fish the valve cover back in here. We got our spark plug well gasket in place where it's supposed to be now. Hopefully it will stay in place. I guess I could stick some RTV on there to make sure it does, but that's just another step I don't want to go through. Get a little punch. Make sure we line all these guys up. Nope. Be nice to have some locating pins on this head to make sure the gasket's going in like it's supposed to. Extremely hard to make sure things line up as you're putting all this back together. And I do a lot of talking about engineers, and yeah, they just don't care about the guy working on the car, or gal. I know there's gals out there that work on them too, but yeah, the engineers, they just don't care. They just want to get it done, get it off their plate so they can go on to the next one. Yeah, but us work on these things makes it kind of a pita. And that just don't want to go in there. This takes quite a bit of finagling, as I'm sure y'all are seeing. A little patience and refusal to give up, though. That side's on. Oh, I lost a bolt. I'll go down for it too. Oh. Them shorty long arms, reach under there and get it. One advantage of long arms. I have to come around the other side and see if we can't wiggle this gasket down in there. There we go. Now get them tightened down. Should be good to go. Well, after I got the valve cover put back on yesterday, I stuck the flashlight down in the spark plug wells to see if the seal was in there like it should have been, and it wasn't. So I had to take the valve cover back off and finagle with that thing to get it back on again. And I set it off on the pilot side fender over there with the bolts in it. When I took it off, when I picked it back up to go to reinstall the thing and put the new ring seals on those wells, I fumbled the valve cover and bolts went everywhere, and this little guy right here went right down in my intercooler pipe and down into the intercooler. So I had to disconnect that hot side pipe to magnet the bolt out of it, but at least I get the chance to show you the difference between the cheap and the good T-bolt clamps, because I still had some cheap ones down on the bottom that I hadn't swapped out yet. This is what I'm talking about. You can see how the neck on that T-bolt is square behind that nut, and like I said, sometimes when you're wrenching on it, your wrench will slip over the nut and down onto that collar, and then it won't turn because it's obviously square. Whereas on the HPS, you know, the quality T-bolt clamp, again, we have that round collar on it to keep your wrench from getting stuck on it. High quality. This came with the intercooler kit, a little cheapo intercooler kit, and that's why it was cheap. Not necessarily the intercooler or the pipes associated with it, but the connections that stick it all together. So we upgraded to the HPS. So So I'm going to get that intercooler pipe back on. I'm going to get this bolt put in the back of the valve cover back there. Get the valve cover torqued down to spec in order. And we'll get the charge pipes put back on, get the distributor stuck back in, and we should be good to go. Time to finagle the distributor back in there. See if we can get it clocked back right. Get a start up first time on this one. That looks about good. Distributor won't go in or out with the hot pipe on the turbo. All that stuff's in the way of that. So if this isn't right, we'll have to take the hot pipe back off and address it again, but hopefully this will get us there. I am not going to tighten this all the way up because we'll have to adjust it a little bit probably. Once you get the car fired up, get her running good, have to warm it back up, get the base timing set back on it again. Y'all know how that's done though from the other videos, so I won't show you all that again. I'm going to go 82 foot-pounds on the inch-pounds on the valve cover. Let's see if this thing will start up for us. I've been cleaning up my mess a little bit, getting things ready for the fire up. Y'all didn't miss anything important, so I'm gonna give her a shot, see what happens. Here goes nothing. Well, that's exactly what we got. Nothing. Looks like the new battery that I put in it, about the time that we went out and did the testing, is now dead. Of course, it had been sitting on the shelf at the battery place since 2019, so it was already 2 years old when I got it. Not a real big surprise that it's dead, so I'm going to pull it out, take it over to the place I bought it from, see if I can get a new one, come back and give this a shot again. Headaches and hassles of messing with cars. Well, I've got a charged battery installed. I'm going to hope that the distributor's put in there properly so we get a first try startup here. That's what we're going to try right now. See if she'll fire up and go for us. Oh yeah. Now it's time to take her out, warm her up, reset our base timing, and we'll be ready to go out and do some more tuning. Looks like y'all are vibrating a little bit up there in the window. Of course, like I said, this thing's solid mounted, so she's going to vibrate a little bit. Hopefully y'all learned a little something in this episode. I know I always learn a little something while I'm working on these things. But until we get out and do some tuning or get another video on Aunt Buck, don't take no wooden nickels and be good. Somebody's got to. I'll see y'all after a while, crocodiles.